Brother Mahbub, it's a pleasure
Thank,
that you are on
thank
this.
you,
Feel free to ask any question, particularly related to our talk.
thank you very much.
And you can also phone any one of us directly as well in case you want to clarify
Thank
it.
you very much. Thank you very much for welcoming.
Welcome.
Uh,
No, thank you very much. The best way to approach this is because all of us at some stage felt that what is going on in the world or in Pakistan or all Muslim countries is not right. And that is the first stage that we identify that what they are doing or what we were doing is not producing results, number one.
yes,
Number two is that when we come to the Quran, we say what exactly is in the Quran. Does it give us a system or it is just meant for swab? Third, which I will very sincerely tell you, is that there's no point in arguing with anyone. You just observe others at this stage, initial stage of acquiring knowledge, and then read these books from Allama Pervez. You can get a set of books from Tulu Islam. There is Brother Sleem over here. You can get in touch with him and get some books if you haven't read them. Very peacefully read in your own time. There is no need to argue with anyone. There is no need to point out to them that you are wrong and so and so and so and so is. That is, and give yourself at least 3 to 5 years before to talk to anyone. It's a very slow process, gradual process, because as you're going through it, you're also observing. And and it is a very difficult phase because something which will appear very obvious to you, very clear to you, will not appear clear and obvious to others. And
yes,
as a result, we end up with unnecessary argument, with unnecessary, fight or some kind of unpleasantness. Absolutely no need. And to create that patience, that sabr within us is part of this training.
yes,
We overcome our own emotions because human beings are very impulsive. We get annoyed. What is, for example, going on in that part of the world is pretty bad. And you do get upset, but not to react to it. Be able to hide your feelings, hide your annoyance, hide your being angry, then proceed step by step, slowly, keeping things to yourself. And that is very important. Otherwise, there are laws over there of blasphemy which can create problems for you.
yes, yes, yes.
And
You're
once
right.
somebody has come to the Quran, remember, he becomes a very important person in the book of Allah. Because breaking those taboos, breaking those barriers of religion, mazhab into deen is a significant leap forward in life. And you should keep attending these presentation, whenever on a Sunday. And this
Yes,
will
right.
make you part of this community. It's a small community, but this is the community of the willing. All of us are volunteers towards the system of deen. Okay. And that will give you strength.
Thank you. Thank you.
But feel free. If you want to talk to me directly in Urdu, I'm quite happy to talk to you. Okay.
Very, बहुत
No,
शुक्रिया. Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehboob Bhai.
Welcome.
Ji Wasim Bhai, welcome. Ji.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम. Just to add, Dr. Saab, to Mahboob Saab,
Thank you.
it is a fortunate position for you to be in Pakistan. See that phrase which we use for the people of Pakistan. You have that all lectures on the audio of Allama Pervez. And if you put an application which is Lugat, Quran with Lugat, that is an application on your mobile phone, you will have all that, the rules and translation and Lugat from Allama Pervez directly available to you. That will be a great help. Instead of even all the books are available, I believe if you contact Salim Saab, he will guide you much more on that. My Dr. I would like, it was a great presentation and very good explanation. I would like if you can a little bit more elaborate on Shaitan and Iblees. That's what both of them are our, as a human being, it's our emotions and jazbat, and you have added that intellect coin of that. Now, these are those human faculties, and the word which is used, you have written there, unbridled, which turns into that. I would like a little bit more on that, because the way we take that these as separate entities from the human being. So that needs a little bit more of discussion and explanation. So that will be great. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you very much. Shaitan's, if we could look at the root of it in Lugatul Quran, it is related to human raw emotions. You know, all of us have these emotions. We can count them like jealousy, envy, hatred, dislike, even pleasure, joy, happiness, love, and annoyance, disgust, dislike, biting, all these proclivities which are very raw, kept within each one of us, and which get some kind of development as we grow. For example, a child born in a family of robbers or thieves is more likely to become a thief than to be otherwise. Similarly, some child born in a professional family, because of the influence, is more likely to end up as a professional. And similarly, if children who are abused, they end up abusing others and also, of course, have psychological issues. So all these aspects are related to being shaitan, because human beings are given these emotions. These are kept within our psyche. And because these are raw, so we have to turn them through the industry, or should I say the manufacturing of our intellect and value system, into something positive. For example, if somebody has those negative emotions, if he or she decides to stay on those negative emotions, and sometimes we do need help as well. That is why this CBT, for example, cognitive behavior therapy, is to help people who cannot manage it themselves, that their own emotions. So Shaitan is related to all kinds of emotions. Once I went through the various psychological papers, and you'll be surprised, I came across something like 300 plus emotions. And those were noted in that. And I made a spreadsheet as well. I should have put in a slide for that, but I'll look for that in case I find that. And for example, when we are annoyed, we can be very annoyed, we can be less annoyed, we can be extremely annoyed, we can be slightly annoyed, or we don't have to be annoyed. And some people are annoyed all their life. You know, they complain all their life, despite being the beneficiaries of the system. So this is the way human psyche works. So Shaitan is more related to that. But what happens is that if we stay in a negative state, or we are faced with the negative outcomes of our own emotional behavior or conduct, like road rage. I have reacted on road rage, and as a result, I'm charged by the police. And then I end up regretting and become remorseful and disappointed. And that will be display of Iblis. And I'll give you another one. Now, Hitler's Germany, just take the example that Hitler displayed his being Shaitan great, because that was the peak of being Shaitan. He created so much destruction around him. While others, of course, the colonized powers were also doing Shaitaniyat, but they were doing it on a slightly longer time scale. But he did it within 10, 12 years of the time he got. And when that effect culminated, he became an Iblis, and he killed himself. And he rightly killed himself, because he knew that what will happen to him if he's captured. So I think that is a good example of being Shaitan and turning into an Iblis. Iblis is all related to hopelessness, despondency, despair, depression, those negative emotions which affect us. And even us who are on this platform, we have to guard against them as well. And I will share with everyone that there are moments in this work of mine where I also feel low, and I immediately tell myself, now this is Iblis which is acting on me. And I pick up that motivation and I say, no, this work has to be done. I've got finite time. See, Yawm al-Qiyamah, which Iblis said that give me respite up to Yawm al-Qiyamah. So I always keep it in mind that Yawm al-Qiyamah is coming, which is my physical death. So before that, certain job has to be done and I should do it. So overcoming that is being Mu'min. Being overwhelmed by Iblis and Shaitan is kufr. So that's the way I look at it. But feel free to please comment.
No, that's great. One aspect which comes to my mind, see, jazbat or the emotions, they are not bad all the time. They are for the human. You cannot work without the emotions. Love is an emotion and it's a great thing which actually help how to move forward. And there's a superlative degree of that love, which we, even Iqbal have said, is ishq, which is with the aggressiveness in a positive way. And there's another word which is passion, which is also from the emotions. Now, without passion, if you do the work with passion, your results are good. You can achieve with passion. Now, I wanted to clarify, these are the things which are that emotions, and as once again repeating that word you have used, bridled, controlled, or unbridled, which are not controlled. Now, another aspect which is like, if I say mental health, is another aspect which can be taken into that, because people with the mental health, the first thing is represented through their behavior, which is emotional behavior. Now, these things which needs to be a little bit more discussed and clarified, that when they start to come under the heading of Shaitan or Iblis, or when they are not.
No, thank you very much. I agree with you that these emotions are in themselves are forces within us, and they're related to our psyche, and it's the way we use them. For example, revenge is a negative emotion, but revenge, the feeling of revenge within the Quran becomes a balanced emotion when we want to set up the system of deen and want to defend those who are subjugated and enslaved. So that way it is anger, for example, is considered a negative emotion, but it becomes a positive emotion when it is within the Quranic guidelines, where we want to stop somebody who is tyrannical or coercive or unjust. So I agree. These are passions. Without passions, we cannot achieve anything in life. We have to get up in the morning. Otherwise, we'll be sticking in, even now at this time, in our beds and do nothing. And similarly, for example, if we have a time and we are part of Tulu Islam and we have time, we understand English as well, and we do not attend this forum of ours, which is not about me, it is about Allah and His deen, then we do not have enough emotive strength, and Shaitan is actually, inverted commas, keeping us away from this path, and which is our loss. And which is, of course, lost to this platform as well, but it is more lost to individual, because individual is not recognizing and has not overcome that tendency of being lazy, can't be bothered, and not come here and share the pleasure of being together. And similarly, patience. Patience is extremely important. Day in and day out, we keep doing the same and know that our path is right, and every step is taking us closer to our destination. And we need tremendous motivation. For example, we come here and we are recommitting for next week, till next week, and then we recommit. No, we will stay focused. We will not become impatient. We will stay on this path. And these are the kind of motivations which we have to create ourselves. Quran can't create it. Allah cannot create it. We all know it. It is us who have to create it using His guidance. So that is the way I look at it. No, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Wasim
That's
bhai.
brilliant. And I'm sure this will keep coming up again and again. And we can keep this presentation in mind, and I will also keep in mind, and we'll refer to it as and when. I think there are some more verses coming up which are related to this aspect.
Thank you,
Iftkhar
Wasim
bhai.
bhai. Ji, one or two comments and a question. I think it's only the Quran that has explained the process or explained what is meant by Adam. As prior to the Quran, Adam has always been understood as one man, and then Eve, and that started the process of humans as a family, which I don't know whether due to limited human intellect, that's how it was understood, or by not having in-depth understanding of the creation of the universe and the creation of the species. But it's actually such a blessing to have that clarity in the process of creation of human beings. My question is, can we give some examples in today's life of those who are not bowing down, or who are bowing down or following Shaitan? I know you've given plenty, but just as when we say Iblees did not bow down, in today's example, in today's at this time, maybe a couple of examples when we say, well, we are not bowing down, or who is not bowing down to the laws of Allah.
Yes, it is. I think all Muslims who read the Quran and they do not follow it, or do not follow its as a whole. They try to follow, like fasting. They think that they are following the Quran, whereas they are not, because the Quran has very clearly said that either you follow the Quran as a whole, as one entity, or do not. So when we do not follow the Quran, we will create the world which we see all around us. So barring, I think, some of us who are those who are into Islam and who are aiming for the system of Deen, others are essentially in the category of Iblis. They are, for example, all the West is in the category of Iblis. They are exactly doing what Iblis wants to do. And we have seen, although this one verse, 1764, in which Quran has outlined 1400 years ago that what Iblis will do. And in 2024, human beings in power are exactly doing that. And those who are following them are also exactly doing the same, because Quran says those who follow you and you yourself will all lump you together and put you into hell. And they have created hell right in front of our own eyes. So that is the way we should look at it. It's not something which is otherworldly. And it is very scary, as I said in my one of the slides, there's a very scary thought that how can so many people be wrong? But fact is that when we use the Quranic criteria, we are able to see that why they are wrong and how they are wrong. And to sit here as a student of the Quran and think that something will change tomorrow into something better means that we haven't understood the Quran. It is naive to think like that. It is not based on evidence, because all those aspects which Quran has pointed to, like those weaknesses which we outlined, some of them, not all, which are manifested by human beings on a regular basis, right in families. Just look around that how many divorces and separations are taking place, how much child abuse is taking place, how many heartaches are taking place in terms of what people are doing to each other. And it's in fact the good, the list of a good probably you can put down on few slides, but the list of evils will need a big book to write it down. So that is the way we should look at it. That is the way at least I look at it. And that is why one should remain dissatisfied. Dissatisfied does not mean not to be happy or not to be to be fearful all the time. No, what Quran is saying is that the state in which you find the world under man-made system, you should strive to first understand it, come to grips with it, then come together and then work for the system of deen, and then see how things start falling in place. And the first stage of things falling in place is that our own self changes. The changes come within our own self. We develop, we grow. We all find that all those wrong things with which previously we acted, now we are in a position to overcome those proclivities. In fact, we can identify, for example, if a jealousy comes in our head, then we immediately recognize it that this is from Shaitan, this is Shaitanat. So Iblis and Shaitan, if we think it is an external entity, that means other human beings. If we think it is an internal entity, then all those thoughts which arise within our own head and we are able to counter them, overcome them, control them, and display a better moment self or Muslim self in the outer world and become muttaqi, then that is the way we should look at it. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Ji, thank you. Ji, Harun, beta, welcome. Ji.
I'm on the thing. Assalamu alaikum. I just want to talk about the sort of previous note on emotions. So, essentially, I think that the meaning in the Quran about Iblis is really where emotions are no longer subservient to a higher ethic. So, emotions themselves rule over your values. But emotions as a force are extremely powerful. They exist in our subconscious and they're often faster than our rational thinking. So we often feel emotions much quicker than we are able to reason around what we are actually perceiving at that time, which means that if emotions are orientated towards a set of values that we wish to become adept in, then they can tell us faster than our rational thinking what's actually going on relative to those values that we wish to hold true. So if I have a set of principles that tell me what's right and wrong, and I meet a new individual and they say things, often my emotions will tell me at that time, if they're correctly orientated, what the nature is of what that person is saying. And that doesn't mean that we should act on those emotions immediately. Action should always be within the sphere of reason, but emotions can be powerful indicators in terms of forming our perception on the go. And we often see that all the time. We've seen that in this platform. We've had people coming in who have beliefs that we don't agree with. We feel anger or irritation first, and then we think, why do we feel that? And then we can rationalize that. If you have a position where you don't have a sophisticated ethic or a set of values, then emotions don't become subservient and they rule over us and we act on them. And that in the Quran, obviously, or elsewhere, is called impulsivity. And that is wrong and leads to despair down the line. And I think that's the differentiation between Shaitan and Iblis here, is that Shaitan appears to be the immediate reaction, the immediate emotions that arise in man, and Iblis appears to be the overarching psychological state of human beings as they cycle through impulsive action and emotions and the despairing consequences of that in their mind, and that cycles again and again and again through repeated patterns of behavior through their life. And the interesting note there was also that was covered in the lecture was that the human being in that psychological state of Iblis becomes self-hating, that he hates mankind and deliberately tries to deceive his own kind and to murder his own kind and destroy his own kind and disrespect and remove the dignity of his own kind, which displays his own manifested self-hatred, that he despises the light within himself and seeks to blot it out in other human beings. So that's a really powerful analogy the Quran has taken. But what I want to say was, fundamentally, I think the way forward for us as individuals, and there has to be some introspection when we're following this, I think, and that would be, if we want to control our emotions, or even, I'd rather say, rather than control, make our emotions orientated towards the goals that we wish to move towards, so that if we look in that direction, our emotions are aligned with our will, that we're not in a constant fight with them. Then we need two things, I think. So one is to have a very clear definition of what our goal is, what Allah is, and what the laws guiding us are, and be specific about that. So not have a general sense. And the reason for not having insipid notions or wishy-washy notions of this is that if you don't have a clear definition of these concepts, what human beings end up doing is projecting onto those concepts our own emotions. So then we start to project onto Allah what we want Allah to be, and we reduce the concept of Allah to a man-made concept through our projection. And I can elaborate this on a bit later as well if you want. But that's why having a clear definition is so important, that we don't bring our own ideas into these concepts and then mislead ourselves. And the second thing is, once we have a clear definition, is to act on it. So through choosing the difficult path, the uphill path, in the words of the Quran, we are teaching our emotions to be subservient to that ethic that we wish to move towards. So by giving money to charity instead of investing in stocks and shares, or spending on a nice car, or buying a nice watch, instead, by sacrificing that wealth and giving it to people who need it, ideally off Iman, we are teaching our emotions that this is what's valuable to me. You are subservient to my will, and I am subservient to Allah's will. And then you get a hierarchy, and emotions become our asset in life, rather than something which is constantly antagonizing us in our day-to-day behavior. Thank you.
Just a point. That's excellent. Thank you very much for bringing out that aspect. In terms of scaling, what you said is that it means that emotions have a shorter time scale than rational thinking. And Iblees is a long-term effect of acting emotionally in our life and not making rational decisions. But again, two aspects of it, that one is living life within Wahi. Within Wahi, of course, then emotions are totally in our control. And wherever we are erring, we realize that we have made a mistake, and then we do tawbah or repentance, whatever it is, and then overcome those. And if there are any losses, we compensate for that. So how do you see in terms of scaling, number one? Number two, what is the state of human beings in, for example, in the present day world? And do you see evidence of it, that how human beings, how their raw emotions, in fact, affect their living? Thank you. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So there was actually another point I wanted to make on that, but I forgot. So there was the idea of Tawbah, for instance, is another. Well, I think that's another action. So it's another powerful movement where we inevitably, fall from grace, as it were, and we do something wrong, and that's inevitable. And the Quran says that's inevitable for all human beings, because in that verse it states, if there was no period of respite, we would all be in Jahannam. So there has to be respite, because inevitably we make mistakes. But Tawbah in and of itself is a powerful action, in that we reorientate ourselves towards that higher set of values by saying, no, I'm not going to persist with this path. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back the way. And behavior and choice, I don't think this is esoteric. I think it's clear that if we express our will, that's far more powerful than just perception. So if we say, no, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to be accountable for, this is what I'm going to hold myself responsible for, emotions naturally become subservient to that over time. But it has to be habitual, it has to be repetitive, has to be practiced. And so I think that's I don't know if that answers the question on Toba, but coming to individuals in the world, the aspect of Iblis we haven't really touched on is the collective aspect. So we've kind of been speaking about this as individuals, but human beings, as we see in the world all the time, can often become possessed by ideologies and then sacrifice their own autonomy to the group. And we see that with partisan politics, with them, currently, if you look at, well, I don't really want to get into specific political movements, but to try and stay objective, if you look at human psychology, it has a whole sphere which defines the idea of the collective unconscious, which is a term coined by Carl Jung, which is where human beings as a group, where they haven't discovered their own individuality, their own ability to express their free will, become possessed by the group mentality, and then all of their behavior becomes rooted in what the group does. And there's that whole aspect of, we see that, for instance, during the COVID pandemic, where people became gripped by a sense of fear completely external from them, and they're all possessed, and you see that, and it's evidenced by when you speak to them, what you see is the same tropes being repeated again and again and again, the same ideas, the same words being repeated again and again and again, almost as if they were physically in the grip of something else, rather than expressing their own will. And I'd say that is also a facet of Iblis, that there is a collective aspect where everyone is consumed by the same sort of fire, as it were. And I think that's really quite interesting. Although the Quran doesn't go into, I don't think it goes into it very specifically, except maybe in that verse where it says, we're going to group you all together and throw you all into hell. I think it's a figure of speech that as individuals you follow Shaitan, as individuals you have a part of Iblis in you, but if you let this rule, then you become collectively a force unit of Iblis. You see what I mean? And that's what we're up against. So, I think the interesting part of that is that if we look at our own groups, as it were, the people who say that division is useful don't understand how massive the problem is we're trying to solve. Because if human beings on the other side are collectively possessed by an ideology and we ourselves are divided, then there's no possibility of overcoming that. You see what I mean? You see, so they actually have a sense of unity in their fear and grief and despair. You see what I mean? And that's what you see when you go out day to day, is that everybody's possessed by these tropes, these fundamental assumptions about life, that life ends with death, that capitalism is useful, that democracy is the highest good. These sorts of ideas, the tropes that can't be broken, and they're fundamental assumptions that shape their worldview. And that's what we're up against. So you can't have divisions in the group, really, because you'll just fall apart once you meet actual ideologies that you're trying to confront, if that makes sense.
So you mean that falling? Sorry, Dr. Manzoor had raised his hand, Iftikhar Bhai. But I thought what he is saying is that he gave me a surprise, Harun. The ideology, when human beings, because Quran is giving an ideology, the Iman means ideology in which Allah as a model comes for human self, and then of course the hereafter, and then the whole spectrum of these permanent values. So if we are thinking outside the Quranic ideology, then we will essentially have all kinds of Iblisi and satanic ideologies which will keep us divisive. And if people are comfortable with those divisions, then it is not possible for those people to remove their divisiveness and come to the path of the Quran.
Yeah, because even in small aspects, they're possessed by something other. So it's not their ideas. It's something outside of them which is taken a hold of their psychology. And it might be in small aspects. So we might agree on one particular aspect of geopolitics, but then it comes to something like, try not to choose anything too divisive, but if you come across something like democracy, they have a firm view that no, you're wrong, this is right, and this is all good, and and they have some sort of funny idea, and it's like they've got a knot in their system that you think, well, in so many other places we're on the right track, and then in this particular way, we're up against something that can't really be undone, and that is ideology. So that's something outside which has possessed them, and which is man-made. So it's not the Quran, because the Quran you can't really become possessed with involuntarily. And that's the beauty, I think, of the Quran, is that you really need a lot of voluntary effort to come towards this. Unless the vast majority of people already follow it, you can't be gripped by this externally without your own will being engaged in it. Do you see what I mean? I think that's where that verse on deen, it can't be forced on anyone, is both an instruction and a rule, because it can't be enforced on anyone as a concept, because the default position is antagonistic to this. The default position is Iblis. This is something over and above that. It's higher. It has to be sought after. Does that make sense? So, yeah, no, I agree.
No, thank you. Iftikhar Bhai, I think Dr. Manzoor wanted to. Thank you, Harun. You can come back if you wish later on.
Ji, Dr. Manzoor Sahab, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Sorry for the prolonged.
No, it's good. Actually, it was good, really, because I was thinking something else, but now came something else in my mind with this discussion.
Okay.
So when this brother was saying about the ideas in the group, I just want to know a bit more, actually, what did he mean by that, to have the ideology that where you should not differ from each other. So I couldn't get it clearly. So maybe brother will possibly later on say something, or you will explain it, what actually he meant. So I got some very small question here. You said in the beginning that the forces of universe, Malaika said, will you place therein this Adam who will cause mischief? And God said, I know what you know not. So what I wanted to know, so does it mean that the Malaika had the knowledge of this facade creating by the man? Or is it something that before Adam, there were other entities as well who had caused facade, and that's what the Malaika were actually relating to them? So that's what I wanted to know.
I think both, in my view, are valid, because remember, we have discussed this before as well, that if Allah was always there, then, and this earth is billions and billions of years old, and the Quran has also said that there was one creation which was made of fire, or who could tolerate fire or heat. So Khalifa also indicates that we are successors of the previous occupant of this earth. And we can stretch our imagination, and though we say it is a metaphorical statement that Malaika said, are allegorically presented by the Quran. But if we factually see today, the forces of the universe which are around us, if they have any eyes or some perception, they are watching what we are doing in this world. So my own view is that both can be taken, that one is, it is metaphorical. Second is that we are successors of others, and these kainati are universal forces have seen human being acting somewhere else as well, because Quran has said that there are creations everywhere in the universe, and Allah continuously creates and adds to his creation. So
Okay, can I then take it a bit forward then here?
Yes,
so
please go ahead.
Is it possible then that the Malaika actually are not what we believe in? Because if this whole world is for humans, the book came for us, it was written for us on this ground. So then is it possible that the idea of Malaika are from the people? What I mean from that, possibly different types of people who have got the dominance in the society, who can make society, change in the society, like people who are commissioners, who are judges, who are the principals, teachers, who can make a difference in the society as well. Because at certain places in Quran, it's a bit difficult to understand. I will give you an example. So Surah number 8 and verse number 12, I will just read the English of it. Your Lord inspired the angels. So let's take it at the moment, Malaika. I am with you So support those who believe. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. So strike above the necks and strike off every fingertip of theirs. So the question is then, the natural forces which we are talking about, how can we just explain that in this verse? And there are other verses as well. And as you know, there are so many verses where people were talking about that to the prophet and before him, that why don't you give us some miracles? Or is it that Allah is sitting up somewhere around the angels as well, unless we see them, unless you create for us those gardens, and then only we can understand. Where Allah says it's not like that. There's nothing like that. Even if I create people or make miracles in front of you, still you are not going to believe in it anyway. So my question is then, is it possible that the understanding of Malaika needs more possibly explanation as well, where we can find out the understanding in the Quran? There are so many verses where it becomes a bit difficult to understand when we just say it's a natural force. When Quran was for us and it has been for us, and this life is for us, and the resources around us, how to distribute them, then possibly there should be on this earth to make it so simple, where we can understand the Malaika.
Yes,
Thank you.
these refer to psychological forces. I agree this verse in Surah Toba is related to human psychological forces within us. And it came to my mind as well that Malaika do not have choice and intent, but our psychological forces, when we, for example, as if we claim to be Mu'mineen, then we have essentially given that choice, the previous choice of doing evil, we have given it up. And we only now have one choice, that is, we have brought our wish, our own desire in line with Allah's wish. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Where Quran says that you bring your Shah, your own wish, in line with the Shah or the will of Allah, then you are fit now to do all those tasks which are related to Rabbil Alameen or Rububiyat for all times. So this just struck me. So what do you think?
Yeah,
So
was thinking because I was looking-
essentially we are becoming a Malak or Malaika once we become Mu'mineen, but of course not giving up our choice and intent, because choice and intent means that part of humanity then disappears. And I'll prefer to be a human being rather than a Malaika or Malak.
No, I think you're right, because if I say that it is something, a state where you have got the dominance in the society, you can make people better, you can give them their jaza as well. So you can make lots of things which can make life better for others as well. So that could be one of the meanings of the Malaika as well. So I was looking on those lines.
Now stay
Thank you.
here. Yeah, just another thought came to my mind. Thank you very much for provoking those thoughts. You're brilliant. Malaika, see, if we, for example, the successors, Adam, our successors will be more human beings coming down the line, isn't it? So if we are asked today by Allah that there are more human beings coming after us, then seeing the behavior of all these Western and other powers in the world, we will also say, you and me and all of us together, that Allah, why are you creating more? Aren't these guys enough to create trouble? And once they have finished up with creating trouble, can you keep your word free of all of them? Isn't it? So in a way, this whole Malaika thing is taking a different dimension. So
Yes, thank you very much.
we can stretch our imagination as much. The thing is, the beauty, Dr. Saab, and we all know it from today's presentation, is that this word is handed over to us. And if Allah did not have confidence and trust in his creation, he would have never given to us wholly and would have kept some kind of, semblance of interference into it. But he has so much confidence and trust in Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, those who have come to this path, that they will do and carry out all those duties which he has reserved for himself, and so that we become those companions and take it forward. So no, thank you very much. Thank you very much for pointing to this. This is brilliant.
See that point, whatsoever is given, if you started to fly your the horses of thinking to that level, I think you should keep your horses in rein and keep yourself within the sphere of Quran, what is already given. So that root of Malaika, it does have two roots. One is Malik and one is another one, which is Alak. So within that, it does not qualify. Human beings were made Khalifa, not any of the Malaika. So even going through that, it's another level of life which goes. We don't know what is going to happen. We can start thinking about what is going to happen in the afterward. Yes, we can, in the same way, we can imagine run our imagination to any level, but that is not in our remit. Our remit is whatsoever is given right now in front of us in Quran. And yes, understanding it, if we digest that, I myself is
you're not comfortable with that. That's fine.
I'm not comfortable with that.
That is fine. I agree with you, because remember, this is the first time this thing has come up. And obviously I will think over it, and all of us should think over it. And if we are not comfortable, that is fine.
Yeah, Dr. Saab, it's not that I'm sorry, Manzoor, it's not anything personal in any way, but these are the ideas which comes, and how to rein yourself, harness yourself back within that chariot you are on, instead of going without full speed.
The thing is that when we take Malak, then it becomes a force. When we take Alak, then it becomes a communication channel, right?
Yeah.
And both, the evidence for both exists.
Yeah.
And for us and for all of us on this platform is that if we have left that path, which was non-Quranic, at least psychologically, we have accepted this path to be the path for us. And then we are now making a full effort to tread on this path. Then as a result of that, there are changes taking place within each one of us. And we are experiencing those changes. It is not otherworldly. Those changes which are taking place within us in terms of our outlook, in terms of overcoming our Shaitani side, our Satanic side, and Ibleesi side. And if we can find support from the Quran for those changes which are taking place within us, and as I said, that essentially we have given up that choice, that thinking, which says that the life will end with death.
Yeah.
And we say, no, the life goes beyond death into that domain of the hereafter. Then we are taking a totally different direction in life. So within that, then we are not transgressing any of the values of the Quran, because Quran has laid down all the main, signs and posted it. And as long as we are not going outside that signpost and not doing any blasphemy as such and transgression, then at a personal level, we can motivate ourselves through that. Right. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Sorry, Manzoor Saab, after this, you can actually continue with that. The only thing which I wanted to bring the point, which I mentioned earlier, see that mental health and these issues which are like jinn and other things which are mental health, they are also termed as shaitan. And the reason I'm bringing it, this is a very valid aspect of shaitan and jinn. I believe Dr. Manzoor is also a medical doctor, some psychologist. I think Dr. Sana is a psychologist, or if they can share their opinion of what is the emotion, mental health, and other issues in respect of whatsoever we have read today, that will be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Wasim bhai. Ji Manzoor Sahib, welcome.
Thank you very much. It was just a thought, what I gave earlier on. But my point was, what I was trying to say actually, the Malaika, if we see, I'm looking at it that if the word Malaka comes in Quran in different forms, the meaning of it stays the same. So that means it can be the owner, the power, person with the power, with authority, or sometimes a person, or even a Nabi who has got so many properties. So what my point was, why I was saying that, if we have got a word in a sentence, and you have got so many sentences in the Quran with the same word, so you can look at the context and you can use the word, but still the basic meaning of it stays the same. So for example, if you have got a word of drop, so I can use it as do not drop the catch. So I'm dropping the ball. Then I have got same word, can you please drop my daughter to the college on your way? So drop stays the same. Or can you put couple of drops of this medicine in both of your eyes? So the word drop I'm using same, but in different sentences with different meanings. In the same way, I was thinking that if Malaika, this force which acts differently at different places in Quran, so can one think over those lines as well? Because as I said earlier on, the book is for us. It was written by the human being. It was given to us for our problems. So we should have all the solutions with us as well, because we have been given the choice and intent, and then we have been given the wahi as well. So in a way, everything has been given to us. It's all now up to us, rather than waiting for somebody or some entity to do things for us. So it was from that angle I was looking at it. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I think we are Lionel, Iftikhar bhai, Lionel, brother Lionel has left, but he's left a nice comment, and he, in his view, let me share it with everyone. He says, thank you for this presentation and the ensuing discussion. It requires a second weekly meet-up, as the forces built into mankind are to be moderated by Iman. It does require reflection on personal and collective responsibility, but then also that in tandem interplay that demands perspective which only the Quran can provide. These are my concerns, to which I require some time to elaborate and later comment. It's a big subject, because emotions, as Wasim has also said, and Dr. Manzoor and Harun, it's a massive subject. And let me tell you and share my own fears and apprehensions when I took on these 5 verses. And I went through a roller coaster of emotions myself. I didn't know how to do justice with it. And I hope I have done some semblance of justice with these 5 verses. But these will come up again, because we are complex beings, and Allah has taken a long time to create us. So we have to do justice to our own emotions, intellect. And another aspect which I have recently, there is a channel, Closer to Truth. There is some Jewish professor of, I think, neuroscience. He recently posted, I shared a clip in our Islamic Dawn forum, where they were struggling to come to differentiate between brain and mind. And they were totally, because they were struggling with it, because they are not bringing an I, human self, into it. That I is using the brain, and the mind is the creation of the brain, but under the control of I. And that was very interesting. I'll see if I could post it in our seminar group as well. And you can go through it. It's very interesting discussion. But human mind is struggling to come to terms with those facts which Quran has made very clear before us. And see how much time we are taking to come to grips with these finer aspects. So this is a book which is literally providing us new life. So we should capitalize on that and not ever try to, become discouraged or start thinking of giving up. So that is the point I'm making. But it is a very big subject and it hasn't ended today.
Thank you.